something else new to the kingdom of Bunjie. It is in this box. It says Hawke on it. We're going to open that up and find out what Hawke is, right? So I got a message from the company saying, hey, you want to try out a new scope? We got a fancy new scope and you can try it out. And I said, that's pretty cool. I'll try that out. I like scopes, right? Now, this scope's a little bit different, right? Got two crossbows right here. One is the Killer Instinct SWAT X1. Love that crossbow. Another one is the Ravin R29X. And I'm really starting to like that crossbow too. You'll notice this one doesn't have a scope. You'll notice that this one does have a scope, but it's not a speed scope. It's a range-finding scope, a Burris Oracle X. I really like the Burris Oracle X, as you know. This, on the other hand, is not a range-finding scope. It is a Hawke XB30 Zoom FFP. Zoom FFP. And the cool thing about this scope, similar to this scope, one of the features I really like about the range-finding scope is the fact that you can zoom in. Once you've got it all set up, you can still zoom in and it doesn't affect the accuracy. Remember the old speed scopes, you can't do that. The old speed scopes, as soon as you zoom in, that's the speed ring. That's essentially not just zooming in and giving you a better optic, a better view. It's also changing your accuracy because it's moving your reticles in comparison to the background, to the target. So it's not going to be accurate as soon as you start doing that. You can't do that. With this, you can do that. How cool is that? Zoom out for close range, zoom in for long range. So you can actually zoom in if you're taking those longer shots. This is the Hawke XB30 Zoom FFP. This is a nice, well-packaged piece of equipment. And then inside the box, we have this. This is what it looks like inside the box. We'll open it. Oh, just be careful here and get this out of here. We've got some lens covers, okay? Lens covers right here. So we got those two. You can put those on here. But the important thing is this monster right here. Ooh, that is not a big scope at all. Wow, this is a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be. Small is beautiful when it comes to scopes because I know that's a gargantuan scope. When you look at the Burris Oracle X, it's a 2-pounder, baby. I've caught fish smaller than that and bragged about them. You know what I'm saying? This, on the other hand, is a relatively small scope by scope standards. That is not a big scope at all. This will fit on just about any crossbow, I'm betting. Now, it doesn't come with scope rings, but I do have rings for just about every scope out there. So, sitting around here, because I don't use these kinds of scopes very often anymore. And it comes with an Allen wrench and a couple other little gadgets in here. It says tools and spares and a zoom lever. There's a zoom lever. Wow. Okay. So, we're going to have a lever on here to zoom. First look through this bad boy. Are you ready? First test with this thing. My old eyes, right? They don't like these scopes where their reticles are real close together. But a zoom scope would help me work with that, right? So first look with my old eyes. Ooh. Wow. 40, 50, 60, and 70. This zero's at 30, it looks like. No, 20-yard reticle. Starts at 30. They asked me which one I wanted. And I said, well, you know, how fast, what crossbow are you going to use it on? Because that matters. So I'm using it on the R29X. I will put it on this crossbow and try it out. Or on the Hybrid-X, one of those two. But this scope comes in 3 different speed models, right? You aren't going to be able to use this scope on an old slow crossbow like Bunjie. Not going to work because it's not fast enough. This scope will work on this particular one. I got it for the higher end speeds, right? It's not the 500 speed. It's actually the middle range speeds, I guess. And I don't know if we got documentation about that in here. It doesn't look like it has specifically anything stating that. But that was the idea behind it when they asked me which one I wanted. Zeroing your scope. Zero the scope precisely at 50 yards using a 50-yard aiming point. To avoid losing an arrow, start at 10 yards for initial adjustments. So basically, get it close at 10 and then dial it in at 50, right? But the top center line on this thing appears to be exactly 30. Then at 10 yards, place a target at 10 yards, take a shot using the central cross aiming point. Adjust windage elevation at 10 yards. 10 yards, 20 clicks equals 1 inch. 20 clicks. So you got real fine adjustment on this scope. Once the impact is within 1 to 2 inches of the aim, move to 50 yards. At 50 yards, use the 50-yard aiming point to fine-tune your zero. At 50 yards, 4 clicks equals 1 inch. So at 50 yards, 4 clicks equals 1 inch. Remember that. This thing is sweet to look through. It is just a clean, crisp, light through here. Now I'm in a basement, well lit and all that stuff. I don't know what this is going to do at low light. We'll take it out there tonight and see. After zeroing at 50 yards, all other aiming points will align. Depending on your exact velocity and arrow configuration, a central aiming point will equal 30 to 50 yards. The top of the central cross works for 10 to 20 yards. The very top of the plus sign at the top, they're saying that's probably your 10 to 20 yard aiming point. So that's what you do. Now, what if I turn something through here and I'm looking through it, right? Oh, the reticles get bigger. Wow. Wow. I wish I had a way to actually show you that video. But when you turn the knob, all of a sudden the numbers are getting closer to you, right? Just like you like. And the reticles are getting farther apart for those closer up shots. So you don't need as much on the screen, that sort of thing. Or if you're zooming in, basically you can get a finer look, a closer look at that deer by zooming in. And then you know exactly where your arrow is going to go. You've got a much better visibility with it. Boy, I like that. You know, another thing I'm noticing about this, my eye relief, when I look through this, okay, my eye relief, I don't have to be right on top of this. My problem with Hawke scopes in the past has been that your eye is too close. Then when you shoot, it hits you in the face. So that doesn't really happen with this. It doesn't feel like that's going to be a problem. This one actually has a little bit better eye relief. What am I doing here? I'm a full hand away where my eye wants to be. So I think it's going to work really, really well on a faster, more aggressive crossbow like the R29X, like the Black Widow here. You got to admit, this is a pretty good looking setup right here. The Burris Oracle X. I love this scope on top of the Ravin R29X. It's a pretty good looking setup, but it's also a pretty good performer too. I'm getting used to it, all right? Ravin, whole new step, a whole new level of crossbow for me, but I'm getting my head around it. I'm starting to really appreciate it, right? I'm only taking this off here. When I put this scope on here, it felt good to the eye, but I can tell you, I think I want this scope moved one notch forward. So it's coming off here anyway. I'm going to end up taking it off anyway. And because this scope is designed to work with a crossbow of this speed, I'm going to take this off, put this on here and see how I like it. Try out this scope and we'll give you the feedback, right? And we'll know more about this scope and we'll get to use it in the 60-yard backyard. Break that loose. Boy, I had that in there good. That scope wasn't coming off. Do you know the SWAT X1 has a Weaver style rail? What's that all about? They're all different, aren't they? It's one of the problems with having multiple crossbows. I've dropped these things before. I got to be more careful with this because I've had them fall off of here before. That's no good. Done, you know. Get where I can see. Get the button. Be more careful, Rich. You'd think I'd be really good at this stuff. I put so many of these scopes on. I have a pile of these Burris Oracle X. I've got 2 boxes right here. Man, I got more of those things. But I love those scopes. Whether this scope replaces it or not, in all fairness, there are people out there who do not want a rangefinding scope and really aren't into that kind of technology, at least at this point. My theory is that someday you will be into that kind of technology. Someday they will become more commonplace. For now, I get that not everybody wants a rangefinding scope, and this, though, gives you one of the advantages of a rangefinding scope in that it's not tied to a certain focal plane, and you can zoom in a little bit. The cost of those rangefinding scopes, I understand, is prohibitive. It's very expensive. They aren't cheap. But that technology, as it becomes more common, will become cheaper and cheaper. And then it'll be out there for everybody, right? For now, I'm kind of into, I mean, I have them and I'm using them. It's that simple. And I probably wouldn't hunt with this. And I've got my rings in all the wrong places. So I'll have to loosen those up. I foresee a lot of editing in this video. Wow, that actually isn't bad. I really right off the bat. It's crooked as anything, but man, is that scope crystal clear. Wow. Wow. Ooh. So far, this is going pretty good. And kaboom, we are good to go. Put my level back over here, and I can put my wedge aside for another day, and we can ratchet this bad boy right down. And I know that I'm good to go. Love it. Let's play around with this outside, shall we? Man, what a mess this place turned out to be, huh? That's where I had to reseed the lawn and add a whole bunch of topsoil. I got a patio table if anybody's interested. Got that listed on the Facebook. And a ladder, I don't know where to store that, but when they were putting my shed in, let's go down and check this out. When they were putting my shed in down here, they did such a great job putting the shed in. I had a guy come in and put in a platform for it. But if you look, here's a 60-yard backyard, you know, where you shoot the crossbows, all that good stuff. And now I got all my targets and stuff stored outside, so I don't have to haul them in and out of the house. Every time you're bringing them in and out of the house, out of the basement, I'm bringing bugs in and grass in, making a mess and everything else. Got to worry about the cat getting out and everything else. Here I can just leave them in the shed, so they're all locked up down there, no problem. And I got a nice little platform we built so I can put the lawnmowers in there, all that good stuff, just like regular people, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, you can't go shooting crossbows in a lawn like that. You got to mow this first. That is bad. And here's the shed. Open it up, and this is what we got. We got the lawnmower, the American flag, and a series of other flags if I want to change it up. Got all my crossbow gear out here, tripods and such. The cases all up on shelves that we built, supported up in the air. We got the push mower here. We got the new riding lawnmower here. We got targets galore, and 3D targets. Fishing poles up there. Got some more gear up here. Old Buckley. There's Buckley. All set up, and the coolers are out here, and a ghost blind if anybody's interested in that. I don't know, maybe I'll keep that, I don't know, we'll see. But it's all set up nice. We got some windows we can open up and make sure we get the air in here so it circulates a little bit. Had a little bit of an ant problem, but kaboom, that fixed that pretty good. I haven't seen an ant since we put those little traps out, and I got more traps if there's more ants. Got a bench to sit on, you know, because you got to have a place to sit. Can't beat it. Now that dresses up the 60-yard backyard, does it not? Just in time for it to rain, unfortunately, but that lawn, not this lawn, but that lawn looks pretty sharp. Still am not used to the R29X. Man, that's a lot of energy going out of there right in your face. You know what I'm saying? That's something you work on. That's why we're shooting in June, right? And July and August. And we get that out of our system before we hunt with this crossbow, if that's going to be the case, in October, right? You get this out of your system now. That's a side note. The important thing is, this scope is about 1 inch high, but dead on. Go in here and take a look at this bad boy. And what we see is, you know, for 12 yards, 10 yards, that's a deer killing machine right there. That'll kill your bear, kill whatever you want to kill. I can't shoot this crossbow at this target. This target is good for 0.7 slugs of momentum and below. This target is good for 0.8 slugs of momentum and above. Let's put it that way, right? And that category of, this will accept anything. You can shoot anything at this. It should stop any modern crossbow or ultra modern crossbow. But really, this is, if you're going to buy a new target, go look on the Death by Bunjie gear page for that too. And you'll find yourself a winner right there. And before I'm done bragging about this target, watch this. It slid right out. Don't have to use fancy field points on this or nothing. Well, I moved back to 30 yards from the target because that's where the crosshairs are. That's like the center line on this scope. So I'm going to be shooting. One of the downsides of the speed ring scope, of course, is that you still have to carry a rangefinder because it's not built in. But I will say this, the overall weight of that scope without the rangefinder built into it, right?
reduces the weight of the crossbow significantly. The Burris Oracle X, the range-finding scopes in general, are kind of heavy pieces of equipment. The Burris Oracle X weighing just under 2 pounds. This is very light. I'll put the weight of it right here on the screen for you, right, so you know, in comparison to the Burris Oracle X. High and left. This scope is illuminated with various levels of brightness. I really do appreciate it. Turning this knob, it clicks, so you've got red, boom. Turn it again, even more red. Turn it again, even more red, etc., etc., etc. And you can go to green also if you want. Same thing. Make it more vibrant or less, you know, make it brighter or not. So it is illuminated. You do have illuminated reticles, and it does light up the entire field of view. Personally, I always left these things on and the batteries went dead. So I'm not really a big fan of them, but this I kind of like because you got a very visible thing right here that says, hey, this is on, this is off right now. Very visible, very easy to tell by looking at it, this is off. And if I turn it on one, it clicks, right? I don't have to guess. When I turn it back, you can feel it. You can feel this thing clicking, so we know that is turned off. Well, I still flinch an awful lot shooting this crossbow. Man, I got to work on that. That is a reflection on me. Again, not really the crossbow so much. People swear by these Ravens. I see the appeal of it. Crank, love it, love it. You know, the crank is just fantastic. Here's the cool thing about this scope on this crossbow, though. I am telling you, and this is a thing with Ravens, because they're so fast and they're shooting so flat, right? They react to this kind of scope so well. It is almost enough to get me to switch because they're shooting so less arcy, right? They're not shooting flat, they're shooting less arcy. That's how I would phrase it. It's still an arc to every arrow, but they're shooting so much less arcy and so much more flat, a flatter trajectory, less arcy trajectory, that this is my third shot. I'm not kidding. You ready? Let's go look at this. I haven't been down here to look at it yet, and the lighted knock thing would really help. I do have a handful of these lighted arrows that have not been used. I got like 6 of them, half a dozen. So I'll be switching to those in the event that I hunt with this crossbow this fall. But this is my third shot. Can you believe this? Third shot. The first one, you know, I was a little high at 10 yards, 12 yards, but the other shot was here, or here, I think it was here. So it was too high, and I moved over and I drew it down, but I just did the math in my head real quick, and now I'm there. And that could just be me. It could just be me. Just be me. And the reason I say that is I'm not really shooting off the best tripod. That thing's good for mobility and especially moving up and down the yard like this. But a Raven like this really wants to be shot off of a bench, right? And that's the reason that stirrup on the front from backyard broadheads really helps you just stabilize that thing. And then you get a little shooting bag back here and move it up and down. Something like that is a much better procedure, a much better setup to get the most out of that crossbow. This is good enough to test the scope because holy cow, like 3 clicks and I'm hitting a bullseye. Like this is touching the bullseye. Like that's pretty good. For me, this is like fantastic. You know, I'm proud enough to stop with it. I'm getting bit up and it's hot out here, muggy and everything else. We're going to get a storm. So I'm going to pack up and call it good for the backyard with this scope. But I got to tell you, I've zoomed in a little bit now because I went back to 30 yards and I had to zoom in a little bit because I like that stuff big. I like it right in my face. But by zooming in, and I'll try to replicate what I'm looking at on the screen, by zooming in, I have a much better view of the target. And the zoom feature on this is fantastic. You've got the same, you know, upper tier glass that you would expect out of a Hawke scope, but you also have the ability to zoom, right? That's something that you lost with speed ring scopes. It was always a danger. And it was a danger in a sense that some people didn't realize you shouldn't be zooming. It's not a zoom scope. It is a adjustment of the speed and adjust your reticles. By zooming here, I can just zoom in and out and it looks fantastic. I really like this scope on this crossbow, and I like the fact that it was so easy to set up in the backyard. I would feel confident hunting with this in a 40-yard situation, maybe even 50-yard situation. And if that's what you're doing with these types of scopes, you're probably okay with one of these because the crossbow is going to react to it so well.
A few closing observations about this new scope from Hawke here, the XB30 Zoom FFP. First thing I want to make clear is this scope is the XB30 Zoom FFP. This is not the XB30. If you have an XB30 scope, I've used that in the past. Did videos on that back when I was using the Scorpion real heavy. I had it on there for a little while. That one, the eye relief is a little too close for me. This one doesn't seem the same. You don't need this one as close to your eye, which is a benefit for me on this crossbow because I'm still a little flinchy with it, you know what I'm saying? A little bit different for me. So that is a benefit here. If you find yourself making contact with the scope when you're shooting the XB30, maybe this is one to look at. Maybe you don't even have that problem. Maybe it was a problem unique to me. I don't know. But nonetheless, I don't have that problem whatsoever with this, and I figured I would mention it. But this is a different scope. This is an upgraded version of a scope from Hawke. This is not the same scope. This one has the added benefit, however, of zooming in. You can zoom in on this scope. Now, it doesn't have a speed ring, and that's what separates it from other scopes. This is really a scope that's designed for people who have crossbows that are modern speeds or ultra-modern speeds, 385 feet per second up to 515, whatever, somewhere in that high speed range, those faster crossbows, right? This is not designed for old, slow crossbows. You can't really use it on those, on the older, slower crossbows. But on your more modern crossbows where you're shooting 385 feet per second and above, you can get one of these scopes, put it on there. This really is not designed to be a long-range scope. It's designed for the person who has a modern crossbow and wants to hunt with it and shoot it in the backyard and goes out to 50 yards or something like that. And it's a real simple setup. Like, I had this thing set up in literally 3 shots. I'm not kidding, 3 shots. Like, you can't ask for a better, quicker setup, simpler setup than this. You know, to my satisfaction, after 3 shots, I was hitting close to a bullseye at 30 yards. And I say this with a lot of gear. The reality is this scope and this crossbow setup shoots better than I am capable of shooting, right? The weak link in this crossbow rig right here, a Ravin R29X, for example, just a 450 feet per second crossbow. The weak link in this is me, not the crossbow. Does that make sense? It's not the gear. I cannot shoot well enough to tell you if this is off by 1.25 inches or 1.5 inches or 2 inches or 1 inch. You know, that I just can't shoot that well. So for a lot of crossbow hunters, this is really the perfect crossbow scope. This scope, right, I've got this one on here for 450 feet per second crossbow. I'm in that range. A problem that I see with that is, what if I had this on like the Killer Instinct SWAT X, for example, and that shoots 435 feet per second, or does it? Right? I buy the 435 feet per second to 465 per second scope and then find out my crossbow actually shoots 430 or 425. And then you put a heavier broadhead on there and you're even further down below that range. You bought the wrong scope. You got to go get the other scope. That's an issue. So this is really for a person who's got a dedicated crossbow. They're going to put it on and they already know what their arrow weight is and they know what the speed is going to be in that range. If you're in that category, this is the scope for you. On one hand, you look at that and you say, this is a problem because it doesn't have a speed ring, and you're kind of guessing, right? I don't like that because it's basically saying you're going to be close enough. It's in a range where you're splitting the difference. We sight this in at 50 yards and it's going to be splitting the difference and making it like a little bit high on the close end of the shots and a little bit low on the long end of the shots or whatever. You're kind of splitting the difference. And I've criticized that technique over the years with speed scopes. It's something I didn't like because it is a bar to perfect accuracy. In that sense, though, this is no different than a speed scope, if that makes any sense. The speed scopes are not perfectly accurate. You go out there with one kind of vein and one arrow, and then you shoot the exact same weight arrow with different veins, for example, or a different broadhead, right? We've all experienced that. And it's going to shoot differently, and you have to sight the scope into that. None of these scopes, whether they're the traditional speed scope or this new FFP from Hawke, these have preset ideas. They have estimates, guesses about how fast the arrow is and what the trajectory of that arrow is going to be. They don't build an algorithm specific to your arrow, right? It's just to a range of arrows. So in that sense, it's no different than a speed scope, right? It's the same thing. It's the same concept. The zoom feature on this, I love it because when I've looked through scopes before, especially the Ravin scopes, I don't even own a Ravin scope. I sold the one that came on this crossbow because it was a different sniper style scope and I didn't really want that. The Ravin scopes I don't like because when I look through them, all of the reticles are just compressed down to this little ball at the end of this, and it's just so hard to see, and there's not much difference between them. But that's just proof that these shoot. The faster you are shooting, the more compressed your shots are because they're flatter. They're less arcy, right? The arc is not there that you would have with older, slower equipment. So those reticles are so close together because there's not much difference between those 10-yard increments. So it's nice to have this zoom feature, but I'll tell you, when I got done shooting this in the backyard, didn't shoot it too many times, but I can tell you, if I was shooting this scope on a regular basis, I would leave it pretty much zoomed in. Like, I have no reason to use 3 on this scope. I can zoom it out to 3. No reason to do that. Maybe target acquisition, but the reality is I look through the scope first, lift it up to my eye, and I'm already positioned on the animal or on the target. And out to 50 yards, 40 yards with this scope, that's never going to be an issue. I have no reason to have a 3 on this scope, if that makes any sense. An animal that's really, really close, maybe you would zoom out a little bit, but the reality is I want this pretty much zoomed in where I can clearly read the reticles and where I can clearly see the difference in my aiming points. So the zoom feature is not as valuable to me as the zoomed in feature, if that makes any sense. Like, if this thing went from 6 to 8 or 5 to 8, it'd probably be just as good as going from 3 to 8. It doesn't make much difference to me. So am I switching scopes? The answer to that is maybe, at least on this crossbow. And here's why. This crossbow, to get the Burris Oracle X sighted in, trued, set up at various yardages, you need quite a few shots, right? This one does not require that. I got it set up. I could go hunt with this right now, right? After 3 shots, I could have hunted with this, but I did take a few more shots. This is a good setup. This is a totally legitimate setup to go out and hunt with right now, and that's pretty amazing after only a few shots. With the Burris Oracle X, I had to spend more time in the backyard, shooting, reshooting, truing, checking it to make sure it's still on, that sort of thing. With these kinds of scopes, this scope, you don't need to do that. It's very easy to set up, and it's going to stay set up. Killer Instinct SWAT X1, still a Burris Oracle X guy. Bunjie, still a Burris Oracle X guy. Those crossbows love those kinds of range-finding scopes where you get that precise dot. Well, that's all I've got for you about the Hawke Zoom FFP, the XB30 Zoom FFP scope. Really great scope. I really do like it. If you purchase one of those, check out the affiliate links in the description of this video. I've been flashing them on the screen, that sort of thing. And until next time, all hail Bunjie.